Knuckle Duster here, and today we'll be talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Now, 1.31 has been out for a little while now, and when 1.3 came out, that was a huge update. And the feedback from that wasn't exactly positive, most of which I disagree with, and I'll explain why that is. Many of the complaints about 1.3 was the lack of DLCs and expansions, just all around new content, which I didn't understand because wasn't everyone complaining about how broken the game was and how it needed to be fixed after it launched, right? So to me, that's exactly what they're doing. That's the priority. They are fixing the game just like everyone wanted. The only valid complaint was the reflections, which was fixed in 1.31. So what I'm saying is, as it is right now, if the game launched at 1.31, I think it would be a good game for most people. Now, is the game exactly like people were hearing before it launched? Not quite. Not quite at all. Do I think CD Projekt Red will, as people say, No Man's Sky the game? And that No Man's Sky is a good reference to a really horrible launch. But that's a tough question right there. I think the people are owed a No Man's Sky kind of transformation of Cyberpunk 2077. But will they get one? I don't know about that. At least not in the same way as No Man's Sky. Because let's think about it for a minute. No Man's Sky, when it launched, was terrible. And I remember how they talked about how players would find each other, but it would be a while, yet players found each other on day one and didn't see each other. So it went from bad to worse fast. But over time, slowly but surely, they did fix the game. And right after they fixed it, they expanded upon it so much so that it's far better than it ever was at launch. Everything promised is already in the game, and then some. They had recently talked about how, 3 years later, they finally got like mostly positive on Steam. And, that's a good achievement. Now, for Cyberpunk 2077 to do something similar, well, it could be done, but can it be done in the same way? Let's be honest about this. All right, let's think about this for a second, because let me put it this way. Let's look at this realistically, because I could think of tons of stuff the game could have that would make it awesome, like the next person. But let's think about how Cyberpunk 2077 could even be done in that same way. Because let's face it, Cyberpunk 2077, as it is now, has, it has roadblocks. So let's jump into that and make a few comparisons as well. Now, let's start with like Night City. It really does look great driving around in Night City. And I've seen a lot of ideas that people have come up with, to improve the game. And I have a lot of ideas as well, and I'll get into that in a bit. But one of the ideas I've seen already in the game that Cyberpunk 2077 is often compared to is none other than GTA 5. Now, it's not a bad thing to do that because, GTA 5 is a good game. It is. But it's 7-8 years old now, so expectations can be pretty high for an open world game that you can walk around and drive in, right? So with Night City, one of the simple things that I felt was needed for immersion's sake, and I'm aiming for all immersion here because I feel like immersion is like key here with all these updates and what people want as far as their ideas. And I've seen that the devs are asking people like about quest ideas and whatnot, but I think they need more than Quest. I think they need more here, and I think everyone else will agree. But one of my issues, though, right off the bat, playing the game, was parking. Something as simple as parking. That was my main issue, because I know you guys, like, when you drove around, like, when you hopped out the car, did you not think it was just weird that you hop out the car and handle your business only to hop back in while all those cars quietly waited till you were done? That is immersion breaking to me. Like, just parking on the sidewalk is just as bad. Like, that doesn't work. But this isn't an issue in GTA 5, at least not for me. Like, when I drove around in GTA, or like single player or GTA Online, that's not a problem. You can park anywhere. There's parking places everywhere. There's spaces everywhere. You can park up, on like you should park, and you could get out the car. NPCs does this. The NPCs do it. Like, they do it all the time. They just park, get out of the car, and then start walking or whatever. In Cyberpunk, that just wasn't really a thing. There were some places, I'll give them this. There were some places where you can, like, park and get out, but more often than not, I was, like, in the middle of the street. Like if you went to, like, a burger joint or something in Cyberpunk, like, yeah, that's fine. But I mean, the most of your quests, though, like, no, you were in the middle of the street. And that brings me to one of the main ideas that I see often online, which is NPC AI. I think that's a must. You have to, like, have a new AI for all the NPCs, because one, and this is like a all encompassing, like, AI I'm talking about, like first, how people behave, like the behavior patterns when people drive. I mean, you have to fix that. But again, on this parking thing, you have to widen those streets first. Widen those streets, and that requires, I guess, like, rebuilding Night City slightly. Like, you're just widening the streets and maybe adding a few spaces here and there. But not only that, but as far as the AI goes, you have to have them behave in traffic and on the street a lot better. You have to make them make the player feel like all those people have something to do. They're not just sitting there walking around. Like, they actually have something to do. People who are driving around, I never see them. I don't really see them, like, park somewhere and get out all that often. Maybe they do. I just haven't noticed it. But you saw that in GTA, though. Just, make it seem like people have lives or something, because to me, they're just there. They, like, you'll watch someone walking, and then they'll walk like 2 blocks, and then they'll just turn back the other way. So they just had nothing to do. Like, at least give it some semblance of life, right? And not only that, but under that same umbrella of AI, the gangs. How do you have all these gangs, and you can't even at the minimum have, like, Watch Dogs 2? You remember Watch Dogs? If you played Watch Dogs, how the gangs would get into it with each other, and it doesn't really need you to actually make it happen. You could, but they would do that randomly on their own. But I would want something that's just a minimum. But I would want something more. I would want them to actually act out what they're known for. Like, they have to actually do all those things. Like, if Maelstrom or whatever attack people with implants, cybernetic cyberware or whatever, and they want to steal it, like, yeah, then they have to do that. You have to, like, have that happen randomly, and you have to have them fight over territory and things like of that nature. You have to have advanced AI on that, and to give it life. And it can't. I know the world doesn't revolve around V, but you have to make it like everybody has their own thing going on, and you're just there. So with the AI, yeah, that's a big part of it. Another roadblock, I would say, and this is something most people ignore, but I think this is an important roadblock. And one of them is the fact that V story is a roadblock, because people want like apartments, they want to buy, like they want to basically take all that GTA Online stuff, like buying new houses. As you progress, you get a better, bigger, better house, stuff like that. But none of that stuff matters to V. Not in the story context. Not with what he's dealing with. He's not thinking about like all that stuff. That just wouldn't work really, unless you were doing a prequel or something, maybe then. But then it wouldn't even explain the whole origin part wouldn't really connect unless you're gonna expand that too. And that's another idea people bring out. They want the paths to be expanded, and I totally understand that, because those paths really aren't that good. They're just not that good. Also, I think people actually enjoy interacting with people in the city. I feel like Jackie Wells was like a major character that people were starting to like, or if they didn't already like him, I think they were starting to like him, and then boom, he's gone. And when that happened, I feel like a lot of players is like, what? Man, like they're already by themselves. Like they're already by themselves, and the one of the main likes of the game, I felt like, had to be Jackie Wells. And when he died, I think that really killed it for a lot of players. Like, oh, he's gone already. And they kind of time skipped when you guys meet. So yeah, I guess a prequel would work, but at the same time, you have to have more memorable characters. Like I felt like Jackie did a good job driving you around or showing you around to make you fit in. Like if you had some sort of life of your own, or felt like you had a life of your own in Night City, then that would be great. But Jackie was it. So when he was gone, it was like, oh, it's just the missions now. Like that's pretty much what it was. Like yeah, you drive around the city and you see the scenery, but you didn't feel like you was truly living in the city. And again, immersion matters. And there's other games that had a similar issue that people came up with ways to fix that. Like look at Skyrim, how it has so many mods that I mean, it has ridiculous amount of mods to fix any issue that people might have with the game. But or Fallout or something like that. And I'm not saying that Cyberpunk needs that. I think it's great if you can mod Cyberpunk like crazy, and there are a lot of mods for Cyberpunk. But no, I think off base, I just feel like it shouldn't be left to the modders on that tip. I feel like off base, you should have a lot of immersion. You should feel like you actually live there. Like everything you do there matters in some sort of way. But like I said, the story itself is kind of a roadblock. If you were to go past the story, and if the devs choose like one of the endings, like, oh, this is what happened, like we're gonna continue from here, and this is what happened, that's a roadblock too, because no matter what ending you choose, that it's a bad one. And if you choose the Johnny ending, then you're not in Night City. So either way, that it doesn't kind of pan out. All these additions people want, like you had some people like, yeah, I want to like be the boss of a corporation, and that makes total sense. That makes total sense to have that kind of freedom, and I support it. That yeah, you should be able to create your own corporation and compete with other corporations, and it's like a game within the game. I totally believe you should have something like that, a game within the game. And you, if you went the corporate route, you can just create your own corporation to compete and stuff like that. Or if you're the street kid, you can create your own gang to compete with the other gang and have your own rules to fight the other gangs, and or come up with truces, or all that stuff, fighting for territory. Like that's awesome. That's like a whole nother game within the game. Like, people can just get lost in that kind of stuff. But again, with V's story, it doesn't add up. And I feel like there may have been changes, because when I saw that, like the E3 type stuff, when they were showing like the female V and stuff, the missions, like the one where they went in and they were dealing with the scavengers, and they had, you had to save that woman and whatnot. That was so scripted. It was scripted well, but it was so scripted, because you wish everything was like that. You wish there was a whole lot of stuff like that, similar, that's just well done. And because it's stuff like that really brings out Night City and the things that go on in Night City. That's why I felt like, yeah, that's pretty good. But you should be able to see it from all types of angles as well. Like when people say, yeah, I want to be the boss of my own such and such. Like, yeah, that would be great. In fact, when you're helping in one of the missions, when you're helping Judy and the dolls and whatnot, it seemed like that was like a perfect opportunity to run your own your own kind of like business, even though the Tigers weren't proud of it. But it seemed like you had the opportunity to do that, and then it just didn't happen. So so yeah, like all those ideas that I've seen and ideas I have myself, like, you can come up with the most awesome like type of things for Cyberpunk. But again, at the end of the day, V storyline kind of roadblocks it. Even if you made like a prequel, that wouldn't be good either, because when you start the game, you're not the top of anything. You don't have something already worked out like that. You kind of at the bottom. They give you a terrible car and everything like that. Like, so if you had like a prequel and then you start the regular game, that wouldn't work out either. So you couldn't stick all that in a prequel, unless they're willing to drop the whole thing. If they're willing to drop like the V story and just make you become a new character and say, hey, we continue this. Now you're this guy in Night City and this is his story. And it's like some expansion where now you can truly experience Night City like as another person with a maybe better story that doesn't end in terrible ways. Like, maybe then like you can stick all that stuff in and it will pan out. But as it is now, not so much. But all in all, I could go on and on, so I don't want to draw this out. But it's just, I just want you guys to think about this for a second, the ideas and the issues that I talked about earlier. And what's your issues? What do you guys think that Cyberpunk needs, and how it would be done? Because a lot of people talk about like, yeah, it needs this and this and that, but they don't talk about how it could be done. Because just a simple like, hey, widen those streets and put parking spaces is a lot of work. Because I know you would have to redo the city, and like, it's a lot of work. So but I think it's needed. So again, like, what is you guys' idea? What ideas do you guys have, and how can you make it happen? How would it work? That's all I want to know. So thanks for watching, and hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you next video.